Let us start streaming. Let me see YouTube. Okay, Prabhu, I think you are good to go.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you for joining. So this is, thank you. Hare Krishna. So we have Bhagavad Gita class on Wednesday evenings. So thank you for joining to ISKCON of Silicon Valley Bhagavad Gita class on Wednesday evening. My name is Kautukarnava, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to speak on Bhagavad Gita. I'm very grateful to Ashramadav Prabhu and the temple authorities for giving me this opportunity. So we will start with the Jaya Radha Madhav. So we can share the screen so that devotees can. Thank you, Ashramadav. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय श्री श्री राधा मदन मोहन भगवान की जय, श्री श्रीमान महाप्रभु की जय, श्री श्री लक्ष्मी नरसिंह देव भगवान की जय, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. Prabhu, can we present Chaitanya Charitamrita Mangalacharan? Do we have that one? The first 19 or 20 verses of Adi Leela.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
can do that.
So Chaitanya Charitamrita, first chapter, 19 verses, they are known as the Mangalacharan or auspicious prayers to the spiritual masters, to Krishna and to the Vaishnavas. And also they offer benedictions and they describe the objective of the book Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. So we'll read the translations and then we'll read the verses. Text 1. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the spiritual masters, the devotees of the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. What the Upanishads describe as the impersonal Brahman is but the effulgence of his body, and the Lord known as the Supersoul is but his localized plenary portion. Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, full with six opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him. May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Shachi Devi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, previously they have separated themselves. Now, these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Desiring to understand the glory of Radharani's love, the wonderful qualities in him that she alone relishes through her love, and the happiness she feels when she realizes the sweetness of his love, the Supreme Lord Hari, richly endowed with her emotions, appeared from the womb of Srimati Shachi Devi as the moon appeared from the ocean. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshan, Sheshnag, and the Vishnus who lie on the Karna ocean, Garbha ocean, and ocean of milk are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. I surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, who is known as Sankarshan, in the midst of the Chaturvyuha, consisting of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. I offer my full obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, whose partial representation called Karno Dakshai Vishnu, lying on the Karna ocean, is the original Purusha, the master of the illusory energy, and the shelter of all the universes. I offer my full obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, a partial part of whom is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. From the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu sprouts the lotus that is the birthplace of Brahma, the engineer of the universe. The stem of that lotus is the resting place of the multitude of planets. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, whose secondary part is the Vishnu lying in the ocean of milk. That Shirodakshai Vishnu is the super soul of all living entities and the maintainer of all the universes. Sheshnag is his further subpart. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. Because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him. I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, Krishna, who is non-different from his features as a devotee, devotional incarnation, devotional manifestation, pure devotee, and devotional energy. Glory to the all-merciful Radha and Madan Mohan. I am lame and ill-advised, yet they are my directors, and their lotus feet are everything to me. In a temple of jewels in Vrindavan, underneath a desire tree, Sri Radha Govind, served by their most confidential associates, sit upon an effulgent throne. I offer my humble obeisances unto them. Sri Srila Gopinath, who originated the transcendental mellow of the Rasa dance, stands on the shore in the Vamshivat and attracts the attention of the cowherd damsels with the sound of his celebrated flute. May they all confer upon us their benediction. Glory to Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda, glory to Advaita Chandra, and glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura, Lord Chaitanya. These three deities of Vrindavan, Madan Mohan, Govind, and Gopinath, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. Maybe Prabhu, we can stop here. I can start sharing because it's already 7:20. Thank you very much.
Sure, Prabhu. Go
Om
ahead.
Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashlakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So thank you, dear devotees, for your association. Thank you for joining. I first of all like to acknowledge temple authorities who have given me this opportunity for speaking on Bhagavad Gita. I would like to send my gratitude to my spiritual teacher, His Grace Vaisheshika Maharaj, and also to Srila Prabhupada, who have made this ancient knowledge of Bhagavad Gita available to us and accessible to us, and given me the opportunity to understand it and present it. And I would also like to offer my gratitude and acknowledgement to Gita Subodhini team. So I referred the Gita Subodhini in order to understand Bhagavad Gita better. It is written by Gaurang Darshan Prabhu. So some acknowledgements before we begin. And today we are going to discuss about the chapter 8, which is Attaining the Supreme. So Bhagavad Gita is a systematic study. Krishna is giving us different levels of the yoga ladder. And sure that my so Krishna is giving us the different levels of yoga ladder, and he's showing us that how bhakti yoga is the highest form of yoga. Excuse me. So Krishna in the first 6 chapters describe about karma yoga and dhyana yoga, and in the middle 6 chapters from 7 through 12 Krishna explains about bhakti yoga, and in the last 6 chapters 13 through 18 Krishna explains about jnana yoga. So Bhagavad Gita is famously known as Gita Upanishad, which means it is one of the Upanishads. It is said that Gita has all the essence of all the Vedas and all the Upanishads. One can derive from all the other Vedas or Upanishads the same benefit, or more than that, one can derive from the study of just by understanding Bhagavad Gita. So we are going to specifically focus on chapter 8 today, because it is part of our chapter a day program as well, and so it is good if we go deeper into the chapter 8, Attaining the Supreme. So in chapter 7, Krishna explained how one can get knowledge of the absolute. So Krishna spoke about his material energy and his spiritual energy, para prakriti and apara prakriti. And towards the end of 7th chapter, Krishna mentioned 7 or 8 items. So there are people who desire salvation. So they understand these articles at the time of death. And by understanding this, they can go to the spiritual world. So Arjuna, as a very sincere student, he gets curious. What are these different articles or the items which Krishna mentioned in 729 and 730? So we can quickly see what are those different items, and then we can go to the chapter 8. So let me share my screen. So this is the chapter 7, knowledge of the absolute. And Krishna describes different kind of people who approach him. Krishna also describes different kind of people who do not approach him. Krishna also describes people who are after material gain, who do not approach him, but they are after material gain. And they are people who just want to merge into the Supreme or the Brahman effulgence. So there are different kinds of people. There are karmis, there are karma yogis, there are jnana yogis, and then there are bhaktas. So in the last two verses, Krishna explains, intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about the transcendental activities. So in this verse, Krishna has mentioned Brahman, and Krishna has also mentioned Adhyatma, which means they know about the transcendental activities. And then karma is activity. So these are the three things that Arjuna gets very curious about, and he is going to ask them in chapter 8 beginning. So what is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, and what is karma? These are the questions which are going to come in chapter 8 beginning. And then text 30, Krishna is saying, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So this seems like there's a lot in this verse where Krishna is speaking about material manifestation. He's talking about the demigods. He's talking about the methods of sacrifice, and he's talking about one knowing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the time of death. Such a person can approach the spiritual world. So because Arjuna is such a sincere student, he's asking these questions. What is this material manifestation? What are the demigods? And what are the uh, methods of sacrifice, or who is the receiver of this sacrifice? And how can one know Krishna at the time of death? So we can see this is the beginning of chapter 8. So if we go to the next chapter, chapter 8, Attaining the Supreme. So this is the first question, first text. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. In text 2, who is the Lord of sacrifice? And how does he live in the body? O Madhusudana. And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So, as we can see, these are very pertinent questions. Any spiritual seeker would like to know the answers to these questions, because we would like to know where we are going. We want to be, we want to control, we want to be self-directed, or we want to be directed by Krishna. We want to get the best destination after death. So these are very, very vital questions for any spiritual seeker. So today we will try to read as much as possible. My goal is to go until text 14, where Krishna mentions the that Bhakti Yoga is the best path out of all the different spiritual seekers who approach Krishna. Bhakti Yoga is the best path. So let's begin. So in text 2, purport, Prabhupada is explaining us that what does Lord of Sacrifice mean? So Lord of Sacrifice means anyone who receives the results of the sacrifice. So he could also mean Indra or Vishnu. So I'm reading from the purport. Lord of Sacrifice may refer to either Vishnu or Indra. So purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord of Sacrifice may refer to either Indra or Vishnu. Vishnu is the chief of the primal demigods, including Brahma and Shiva. And Indra is the chief of the administrative demigods. Both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped by Yajna performances. But here Arjuna asks me, who is actually the Lord of Yajna, sacrifice, and how the Lord is residing within the body of the living entity? So, of course, Krishna is going to answer this in the coming verses, but this is the detail why he's asking the Lord of Sacrifice. And then Prabhupada mentions why is Krishna being referred to as Madhusudana. So every word of Bhagavad Gita has a special importance. Krishna has so many different names. Why is Arjuna addressing him as Madhusudana here? So Prabhupada is mentioning that as a Krishna conscious devotee, Arjuna should not have had this question about who would be the Lord of Sacrifice and how can one be engaged in devotional service. How can one approach Krishna? Because he is already in association of Krishna, he is supposed to know this already. But these questions are like demons. These doubts are like demons. And Krishna is known as the killer of the demons. Madhu is one of the demons whom Krishna killed. That's why Krishna's name is Madhusudana. So here Arjuna is requesting Krishna that all these doubts that has arisen in his heart, please destroy those doubts, just like you destroy the demon Madhu and others. And then Prabhupada refers to what is the third part of this, the last part. How can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So now the word Prayan Kale in this verse is very significant because whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. Arjuna is very anxious to know of those who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. What should be their position at that final moment? At the time of death, all the bodily functions are disrupted and the mind is not in a proper condition. Thus, disturbed by the bodily situation, one may not be able to remember the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Kulshekhara, a great devotee, prays, "My dear Lord, just now I am quite healthy, and it is better that I die immediately, so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet." The metaphor is used because the swan, a bird of the water, takes pleasure in digging into the lotus flowers. Its sporting proclivity is to enter the lotus flower. Maharaj Kulshekhara says to the Lord, quote, "Now my mind is undisturbed and I am quite healthy. If I die immediately thinking of your lotus feet, then I am sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. But if I have to wait for my natural death, then I do not know what will happen. Because at that time, the bodily functions will be disrupted. My throat will be choked up, and I do not know whether I shall be able to chant your name. Better let me die immediately. Unquote. Arjuna questions how a person can fix his mind on Krishna's lotus feet at such a time. So, this is an important question for a pure devotee. How can we fix our mind? Because all the bodily functions are disrupted and the mind is not in a proper condition. So, Krishna is going to answer that in the rest of the chapter. He is also going to explain what are the different destinations for different kind of spiritual seekers. Maharaj Kulshekhara is one of the famous devotees of the Lord, and he has written a book called Mukundamala Stotra. So he's one of the alvars from Sri Sampradaya, and he has written meditations on Krishna. So if you get a chance, you can read Mukundamala Stotra. It is available on KK Songs as well. They are beautiful prayers. Out of all of them, Prabhupada would quote text 33, which is referred to here. My dear Lord, just now I am quite healthy, and it is better that I die immediately, so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet. So, this is the mood of a pure devotee, to always be remembering Krishna and to go back to Krishna after leaving this body. So, this is the second question. Let me go to text 3. Now, Krishna is answering the questions. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. So, we can see how concisely Krishna is mentioning this concepts of what is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, what is karma. And we are so fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has given us elaborate purports to understand what Krishna is saying here and what Arjuna is asking, so that we can apply this in our life. So we'll read Srila Prabhupada's purport. Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Par-Brahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation, by the force of material consciousness. So, it is, I have heard from various classes of Prabhupada that the consciousness originally is pure. It is just like the rainwater which falls from the sky. It is pure in its original form. But as soon as this water comes in touch with mud or earth, it, it starts carrying some impurities. It's no longer in its pure form. Similarly, when the when the living entity in the spiritual world, it's always in the pure form. It's indestructible and eternally existing. But when there is a contamination of material consciousness, that I am I want to enjoy like Krishna. I want to become better than Krishna, or let me enjoy myself. Why should I serve Krishna? Then one degrades. That is the contamination that enters into the pure soul. That is when the chain of karma begins. Because in the spiritual world, everyone is engaged in service of Krishna. That is the constitutional position of a living entity. It is said that living entities are like iron nails, and Krishna is like the magnet. Our original situation is to get automatically attracted to Krishna, to serve him. But when there is a material contamination, which is compared to the rust on the iron nails, then we lose our attraction towards Krishna. We lose our attachment to Krishna. So we'll continue. In Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Par-Brahman. The living entity takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter, and sometimes he identifies himself with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. In material nature, he may take a body from any of the 8,400,000 species of life, but in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he is manifested sometimes as a man, demigod, animal, beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices, yajna, but when his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. This process is called karma. So Prabhupada is giving us such a broad definition of karma. Prabhupada, if we see in the translation, Krishna has mentioned action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma. And now, how does that work? This is how it works. When I misidentify myself with the lower nature, the material nature, then I get a material body. And what is that material body? There are 8,400,000 species. Men, humans, demigods, animals, beasts, birds, aquatics, reptiles. There are so many species. But there is only one spiritual body in the spiritual world. So in the heavenly planets or in the material world, we get different kinds of bodies, and that process is called karma. When this merit is exhausted, then one falls down from the heavenly planets. So it is said that the living entity who has exhausted its pious credits, or in the material world, we can say, just like we get reward points when we go and travel to an airline. So when those reward points are exhausted, then we go back to the economy seat. Similarly, when these pious credits are exhausted, we fall down to the earthly planets. So in the last part of this purport, Prabhupada mentioned that impersonalists misunderstand the living entity to be Krishna himself, because Krishna says in 15th chapter, text 7, Mamaiva amsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, that the living entity is an eternal fragment of myself. So Prabhupada says we are eternal fragments, but the living entity is not Krishna. Living entity is a fragment of Krishna. So the fragment of Krishna can fall down. It can come under the ignorance to identify oneself as matter. But Krishna can never fall down. excuse me. So there is a difference between Brahman and Parbrahman. I will pause here for some time. If anybody has any questions or reflections from what we have heard until now, I would like to have some human interaction.
Mhm. Let me see, Prabhu, if there is any question anywhere. Oh, there are no questions online. So you might like to continue, but I think we are doing good here, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu, thank
That
you very much.
example you gave of the nail, that's nice. Sometimes I think Prabhupada gives the example of spark also. When the spark goes far away from the fire, then it has a tendency to extinguish. It wants to remain a spark, then it stays close to the fire.
Thank you for bringing that point. That is very nice example. Prabhupada mentions if the spark falls on a grass, then it can start burning again.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this is compared to the mode of goodness. If the spark falls on earth, it could be compared to the mode of passion. And then if it falls on water, its tendency to serve Krishna is completely extinguished.
Yeah. Mode of
This is
ignorance.
mode of ignorance. That's very beautiful example. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
So I will continue then.
Yes, please.
So this is text 4. O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adhibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods like those of the sun and moon, is called Adhidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adhiyagnya, the Lord of sacrifice. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The physical nature is constantly changing. Material bodies generally pass through 6 stages. They are born, they grow, they remain for some duration, they produce some byproducts, they dwindle, and then they vanish. This physical nature is called Adhibhuta. It is created at a certain point and will be annihilated at a certain point. The conception of the universal form of the Supreme Lord, which includes all the demigods and their different planets, is called Adhidaivata. And present in the body along with the individual soul is the super soul, a plenary representation of Lord Krishna. The super soul is called the Paramatma or Adhiyagnya and is situated in the heart. The word Eva is particularly important in the context of this verse because by this word, the Lord stresses that the Paramatma is not different from him. The super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, seated beside the individual soul, is the witness of the individual soul's activities and is the source of the soul's various types of consciousness. The super soul gives the individual soul an opportunity to act freely and witnesses his activities. The functions of all these different manifestations of the Supreme Lord automatically become clarified for the pure Krishna conscious devotee in transcendental service to the Lord, engaged in transcendental service to the Lord. The gigantic universal form of the Lord, called Adidaivata, is contemplated by the neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as the Super Soul. The neophyte is advised to contemplate the universal form or Virat Purusha, whose legs are considered the lower planets, whose eyes are considered the sun and moon, and whose head is considered the upper planetary system. So, Prabhupada is explaining what is the definition of the physical nature. So, Krishna mentioned, which is constantly changing. That is called Adhibhuta. And Prabhupada has given more details. Just like when we are born, we are spiritual beings in a material body. This body is made up of 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then 3 subtle material elements, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego, as explained by Krishna in chapter 7. So this material body inhabited by a spirit, it is born, it grows, and it remains for some duration. Then it produces some byproducts, maybe some more children, depends upon the species, and they dwindle. Then we grow old, and then this body is vanished. Again, the five elements go back: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the subtle body carries the person to the next destination. So this physical nature, which is changing, is called adhibhuta. So we should be careful. This is not about the spirit soul. This is about the five elements. And they are always changing. Material nature is always in flux. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu gives this example that we can never step into the Mississippi River twice. Suppose I step once and then I step out, then I step again. The river is not the same. Why? Because the water is always flowing. So the river is constantly changing. It's not stationary, it's not stagnant. So it's always in flux. Similarly, in our body, made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, as we understand from medical science, it's almost 70% water, right? And we can feel it when we press the body. We can feel it, And so this blood is always circulating. It's always in flux. New RBCs are being formed. There is some destruction of the previous cells. Some new are being formed always, constantly. So this body is always in flux. Every moment we are moving to a different body. Every moment we are changing the body. And at the time of death, that's the ultimate change when we go out of this body. So this is called adhibhuta. Then there is adhidaiva. Daiva is the universal form of the Lord. So Krishna manifests this universe, material universe, so that the living entities can stay and enjoy separately from Krishna. In order to facilitate that, Krishna gives us the demigods, like those of the sun and moon. So sun gives us the vital life energy. All the food that is grown is because of the sunlight. We get the warmth, the right kind of temperature because of sunlight. The different kind of electricity it's nothing but stored sun energy. Moon makes the vegetables succulent. Moon gives the nutrition to the vegetables, juice for the vegetables. So we are completely dependent on these demigods. Then there is Indra, who supplies the rain. There is Vayu, who gives us the wind. And then there's fire. So we need all these. We need water, we need fire, we need air. All these are required to live happily and peacefully in this universe, in this material universe. So Krishna fulfills our needs in the form of universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods. For a neophyte person who cannot see Krishna in the heart, who cannot experience Krishna as a super soul, they can see Krishna's hand through this universal form. They can see the natural order in the world. They can see how the universe is so benevolent. But for advanced yogis or spiritual practitioners, Krishna can be perceived as super soul in the heart of every embodied being. He is known as Adiyajna. So Krishna says that I am that super soul who is seated in the heart. In 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam riddeshe arjun tishtati. That I am the Ishvara, I am the super soul sitting in the heart of every living entity. What is Krishna doing there? He is sanctioning and he is witnessing. He is letting us fulfill our own material desires based on our karma. He sanctions it, and then he is witnessing it so that we can get the reactions for our activities. So in the um, sometimes there's a question, how can we be accountable for something that I have done in previous lives? Because there has to be a witness who has accounted for my activities. So super soul is the witness who is always noting down our activities. And it may take many, many lifetimes for us to get the reactions for a particular activity. It could be positive or negative, but the super soul is always attentive. And for people who want to go back to the spiritual world, Krishna gives guidance in the form of the super soul. So it is, Srila Prabhupada says, and it is a phrase in English, man proposes and God disposes. We can only desire, we can only propose, and God is one who is going to dispose it in the form of the super soul. So now we go to the next text. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself. Yeah, feel free to interrupt me at any time, or you
Uh,
can.
One question.
Yes, Nimish.
Uh, can you elaborate on this? I think you touched upon this, but can you throw some light? Like, what does it mean when the text says that it is the source of soul's conscious, different consciousness? Something like that was mentioned. That super soul is the source of soul's something,
Yeah, so here it is mentioned. mm,
various types of consciousness. In the middle, there is a line.
oh,
Yes,
yeah. The super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, seated beside the individual soul, is the witness of the individual soul's activities and is the source of the soul's various types of consciousness. The super soul gives the individual soul an opportunity to act freely and witnesses his activities. So, whether one wants to be in the spiritual energy or in the material energy, that is my desire. But then Krishna makes it available for us. For example, I'm giving a crude example. In the civilized society, if a person wants to earn money by honest means, or he wants to earn money by dishonest means, it's his personal desire. But the system is going to allow him to do whatever he likes. So a free citizen is allowed to earn the money by honest means or commit theft. Of course, the system does not recommend that you go and engage in theft or stealing or robbery or any kinds of dishonest means, but there is a sense of freedom that is provided in this, in the free world. However, when a person commits some kind of crime or something which is against the law, he is punished by the law. Similarly, so Krishna is the source of the soul's various types of consciousness. If the soul wants to uh, act against Krishna's will, then Krishna allows it, allows that kind of consciousness. But if he wants to act dutifully, act in the spiritual energy, act in accordance with Krishna's instructions, then that is also facilitated by Krishna. So that is the meaning of the source of the soul's various types of consciousness.
I see. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
examples.
Thank you for the nice question. Okay, we'll continue. Text 5. And whoever at the end of life, whoever, Nimish, would you like to read this translation and purport?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, please. Thank you.
And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone at once, attains my nature. Of there of this there is no doubt. Purport. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree, Tarur api Shahinod Nand. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, so that at the end of one's life, one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness.
Thank you for reading. Very nice. So here Krishna is giving us the formula for attaining him, attaining Krishna's nature. We need to remember him at the time of quitting this body. And of this, there is no doubt that we'll go back, we'll attain his nature. So Prabhupada elaborates that remembering the word smaran is very important. So Krishna says, Yo ma smaran muktva kalevaram. Kalevaram is the body and smaran is remembrance. So recently I heard in one of the classes that when we are leaving this body, when we are near death, all the gross organs, they start losing, they start getting cold, they start dysfunctioning, starting with the external organs and then going within. So the organs that are inside, they shut down at the end, but the outside organ starts shutting down first. And at that time, we do not have control on the speech. The only thing that we have at that time is our remembrance, is our thought process. So whatever we have cultivated throughout our life, that we will automatically remember. So Prabhupada is saying that we incessantly chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There can be so many impediments for a person who is trying to chant, but one should still tolerate such impediments. Lord Chaitanya has requested us to become like a tree, as tolerant as a tree. A tree has to stand in summer, in winter, suffer through the hot sun and cold winters, and sometimes it is cut down, but the tree never protests. Tree always gives the fruits and shade. Similarly, a devotee who is aspiring to go back to the spiritual world, he should cultivate this nature of being as tolerant as a tree. Srila Prabhupada, when he came to the Western world in New York, he did not have much resources. He had to stay at a place with somebody who was a drug addict. He had to stay with people who were eating meat, who were not following the 4 regulative principles, who were into illicit sex, gambling, drugs, intoxication. But Srila Prabhupada continued chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He continued giving classes on Bhagavad Gita. He continued translating Bhagavad Gita from Sanskrit to English, giving purports for Srimad Bhagavatam. And because he tolerated all that, Krishna awarded him all the nice disciples who helped him in later propagating the Krishna consciousness movement. Anybody else, would you like to read text 6?
I can read, Prabhu.
Okay, please. Word simple.
Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. This is a point we should note very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life, and so in his next life he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer he remembered his past activities, he had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life.
Thank you, Prabhu. So here Krishna is mentioning a general principle that whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So for this there is no doubt. So Maharaj Bharat, he gave up his earthly kingdom. He gave up his royal. He was an emperor of the whole planet. At a very early age, he gave it up. He gave up his family. He gave up his royal treasure. He gave up his family. He gave up his the chariots. So many things, the career, just so that he can focus on the spiritual life and go back to the spiritual world. While he was doing his practice, he was at a very advanced stage. He was practicing bhakti yoga in the forest. At that time, he saw a deer, a fawn, which was born from a mother deer who died. So he developed this emotion of compassion, which is very natural for a devotee. But this mode of caring for the deer became so much dominant that he forgot his devotional service. He neglected his devotional service. At that time of his death, he was remembering the deer. So, as Krishna has mentioned, he got a body of a deer in the next life. But Krishna made sure that he could remember his past activities. Even while he was a deer, he was associating with the sages and he was performing yoga asanas in the hermitage of the sages. He was controlling his breath. He was focusing. He was meditating on Krishna. And at the end of leaving his deer body, he got another body, which was human body. He was born into a family of Brahmins, which is Chad Bharat. So Jad Bharat was very cautious about his behavior or treatment with the outside world. He acted like a madman. He acted like a man who was a dumb person because he did not want to interact with the world at all. He had seen how he had to go through that deer body because of his entanglement with the deer. So he did not want to interact with the material world at all. So as Jad Bharat, he gave valuable instructions to Maharaj Rahugana, who was a pure devotee. Later on, at the end of his life, he went back to the spiritual world. So one should be very careful. What is my what am I remembering most of the time? I heard from His Grace Acharya Ratna Prabhu that when we are doing some calculation on a calculator, we are doing so many calculations, plus minus, or plus plus, and then we do the equal to, we press the equal to button. So the sum total, the result will depend on whatever we have entered previous to that, right? That is the sum total of all the previous values that we have entered. That is the result. That is one result. Similarly, when we leave this body, it is like a flash. The entire life goes in our vision like a flash. And whatever we have done, we will remember that. So we should pour in as much transcendental vibration as possible by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Text 7. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Purport. This instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet Krishna Loka without a doubt. So now Krishna is saying, you should always think of me and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. Don't think that you will have to leave your job. You can do your job. You have to do your job. We cannot give up our prescribed duties. And at the same time, one should think Hare Krishna. We should think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. So, and there's a story when one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco, he wanted to join the temple as a brahmachari, but Srila Prabhupada said, no, you continue working. He was working maybe as a cab driver or as a teacher. Prabhupada said, we need money to print the books or for the temple. So you continue working and donate the money that you earn for the temple. So Prabhupada was not against job, but the goal was to always think of Krishna while one is doing one's job. So one has to maintain one's body. Krishna also said one has to maintain one's body in order to stay in the world. Okay. Anybody else would like to read?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mother.
He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Mahamantra Hare Krishna. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Purusham means enjoyer. Although living entities belong to the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the supreme enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the supreme enjoyer is the supreme personality of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayan, Vasudev, etc. The devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayan, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation on the super soul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. One example often given is that of the caterpillar that thinks of becoming a butterfly and so is transformed into a butterfly in the same life. Similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain that at the end of our lives we shall have the same bodily constitution as Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for reading. So here we see that Krishna is saying how we should meditate on him. We should meditate on him as the Param Purusha, that he is the supreme enjoyer, and one should not be deviated from the path. Such a person is sure to reach Krishna. So we belong to the marginal energy. Prabhupada gives a very nice example. Just like the beach next to the ocean, there is some part of the beach which is sometime merged into the ocean and sometime it is not merged in the ocean. It's called marginal. So living entity can choose whether living entity wants to serve Krishna or wants to serve the material nature. Because our original situation is to serve. Living entity means we are meant for service. I can choose whether I want to serve Krishna or I want to serve the material energy. When I'm serving my own senses, I might say, oh, I am not serving Krishna, I am serving myself. But these senses are nothing but material energy. We are not these senses, these hands, legs, body. They are given to us by the material energy. When we are feeding the body, feeding the stomach, actually we are serving the material energy. So it is up to us whether we want to serve material energy or spiritual energy. By serving spiritual energy, we go back to the spiritual world. We become like Krishna. We become like Krishna in quality. Not that we become Krishna, but we become Krishna, the same bodily constitution as Krishna. So for that, one has to constantly engaged in remembering Krishna. Just like association, whatever we associate more, we become like that. If we know the 5 people we associate the most, we can understand what is my nature and what is my future. That's why we should engage with the devotees of Krishna so that we can cultivate the same mood. Those who have this mood of constantly remembering Krishna, serving Krishna, chanting Krishna's glories, hearing about Krishna. Okay, I would like to pause here for a few minutes. If anybody has any questions or comments.
Devotees, if you have any questions who are on Zoom, please unmute and ask. Don't hesitate. Meanwhile, just let me go and check online if there are any questions. Prabhu. And you don't have to ask always questions. You can also give your comments, your feedback.
I like this point, Prabhu, that if you are not serving Krishna, then we are serving this like tongue, stomach, and we think we are serving ourselves. But actually, this is not us, and we are still serving material energy. So this point was also. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Nimish Prabhu, for reflecting that. Prabhupada gives this example when a person leaves his body, his relatives, they cry, "Oh, my son, my son has left, or my father has left." But if we see, the body is still lying there. The body has the legs, the hands, head, everything. Then what has left? That is the soul which has left. So it's not the body, it's the soul. And we have never seen the soul. We have only interacted with the body. So one should understand from the authoritative scriptures that how we are spiritual beings ensconced in a matter and then try to rise above. Thank you. Okay, let me continue. There's nothing else. So I would like to go to the translations now because we only have 10 minutes. So in text 9, Krishna says one should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. Now, Krishna has told us to always meditate on him, but we need to know some qualities and attributes for a person so that we can meditate on him. So, Supreme Person has many qualities. Then Krishna is explaining us what are his qualities. One who knows everything. He's a Kavi. He's the oldest. Although he's the oldest, his body is like a fresh youth. He's always 14 years old. Kavim Puranam, Anushasitaram. He is the controller of the material nature. He is the one who is controlling the material energy. He's controlling the three modes of nature. Anor Aniyamscha Anusmaredya, who is smaller than the smallest. So the living entity is, the size of the living entity is 1/10,000 part of the tip of the hair. But Krishna as super soul sits next to that soul. He enters that soul. He is known as the soul of our soul. So he is smaller than the smallest. And he's the maintainer of everything. Who is beyond, he's supplying food to everybody. He's supplying food to aquatics, to birds, animals, beasts. And he's the maintainer of the material creation and the spiritual creation. He is beyond all material conception. He is inconceivable. So we cannot imagine the limits of this material universe. What to speak of the spiritual world, which is much bigger and beyond. So our limited mind and intelligence cannot conceive of the Supreme Person. But he is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. One who at the time of death fixes his life here between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here, Krishna is explaining the process of, let me go to the purport. It's called Shat Chakra Yoga. Shat Chakra Yoga. So we have 6 chakras in our body. So the process is given by Krishna. It's that we fix our life here between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind, think about Krishna, remember Krishna. So one has to work hard in order to elevate our life here in between the eyebrows and then meditate on the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada says that this process was practical in Satyayug, in Dwapar Yuga, in Treta Yuga, but not in Kali Yuga. There is no possibility for one going to a secluded place and practicing Shat Chakra Yoga. It might be possible for one or two people, but it is not a general process which is possible for this age. However, for the sake of completion, Krishna is explaining that how yogis can attain this perfection. So this is called Shat Chakra Yoga. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkar, and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. So in text 11, 12, and 13, Krishna is explaining how a yogi can attain perfection by uttering Omkar and by practicing celibacy. They can enter into the Brahman. So this is referring to the Ashtanga Yoga process, where we follow certain rules and rules and regulations, and we detach ourselves from the sensual engagements. The yogic situation is that of the detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life here at the top of head. One establishes himself in yoga. So if we understand the first four limbs of Ashtanga Yoga is to follow the rules, always be truthful, be honest, sit on a clean place. This has been explained in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Sit on a place which is not too high or not too low, and then be situated in celibacy. Focus. The eyes should not be closed and should not be open. Focus on the tip of the nose, and then think about the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is situated in the heart. So this is the different limbs. Pratyahar, do not engage in sensual things. Live very simply, frugally. And then after being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. So this is the later parts of Ashtanga Yoga process, which is called Dhyan, Dharana, and Samadhi. So at every consecutive step, one's concentration on the Supreme gets thicker and thicker. One can focus on Krishna for a longer duration. But Prabhupada mentions that this process is not for this age. In this age, we can simply chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Krishna confirms this in the text 14. So this is what I wanted to mention. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So Ananya Cheta, without deviation of the mind. One has to remember Krishna without any deviation. There has to be no mixture. It should be pure bhakti, service for the sake of service. There are different kind of yogas. Karma yoga, people who want to enjoy material gain. There's Gyan yoga, who want to speculate. And there's Hat yoga, who want to merge into Brahman. But Bhakti yoga does not have any mixture of Jnana, Karma, or Hat yoga. Bhakti yoga means it is only for the sake of service, So that's why when we take to devotional service or we get initiated from a spiritual master, it is called the beginning. It is an initiation. So one can gradually purify one's consciousness to act 100% for the service of Krishna and no material motives. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a verse, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakale Ashanta Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ataiva Shanta. So a person who is in desire of heavenly enjoyments is known as Bhukti. And Mukti, one who wants to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. And then there is Siddhi, people who perform yoga to get mystic powers. They are always in anxiety because they want something out of it. But a person who is a pure devotee of Krishna, he is known as Shanta. He has perfect peace. Perfect peace belongs to him alone, not to them who strive for personal gain. Therefore, the Lord says that for anyone who is unflinchingly devoted to him, he is easy to obtain. And this kind of devotion can be performed in 5 different ways. Shanta Bhakta, engaged in devotional service in neutrality. For example, the flute, the cows, they are appreciating Krishna. They are there, the grass, the trees. Dasya Bhakta, engaged in devotional service as servant. And maybe the moving entities can come in the mood as a servant, like the cows, like the trees, like Govardhan, which is offering the caves, the nice grass for the cows. Sakhya Bhakta, engaged as friend, the Sakhas of Krishna. Vasalya Bhakta, parent, like Yashoda Maya and Nanda Maharaj. And Madhurya Bhakta is one as conjugal lover, like the Gopis and Srimati Radharani. So this is the greatest blessing of the Krishna conscious process of the chanting of the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we'll stop here because it's already 8:30. And take any, Ashramada Prabhu, please guide us.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice class. Sometimes going through all the verses and reading Srila Prabhupada purports, right, enlivens us, because sometimes we are unable to find the connection between the verses, right? And because Lord Krishna is saying that difficult process of putting the life here at the top of the head and all that, right? Undeviating mind. So undeviating mind, that part Krishna, I think, stresses that, and Srila Prabhupada also stress in purport that that chanting is not like just 16 rounds, but whenever we get time, we think this is leisure, we should chant. That's what I think Srila Prabhupada is trying to say by interpreting, Krishna's words there. It's not just 16 rounds. 16 rounds we have to chant because we promised to our Gurudev right in front of the fire. So we have to chant 16 rounds. But whenever there is a chance, you keep chanting, basically, in your mind or with your beat bags, if possible.
That nicely summarizes the conclusion.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu, for coming to the class. I don't know if anyone has any questions here. They can sure unmute, or they want to give any comments or any feedback, unmute and provide it. Meanwhile, I'm checking quickly online if there are anything.
One question, Prabhu. You all gave example of cows flute in the neutral stage of bhakti, but you also gave their example in the dasya stage of bhakti. Like, can you explain, like, how do I understand that they belong to both?
Yeah,
Or did I
maybe.
hear wrongly?
Yeah, I think I did not clarify that. Yeah, I myself, I'm not 100% sure there. But my understanding is that any moving entity which is offering service, like cows are offering milk, that is active service. So they must be in the Dasyaras. But any other beings who are simply appreciating, they are not offering any service. For example, the bees who are always humming around Krishna's garland. They just want to be around Krishna. They are appreciating Krishna. So they are also they are in neutral stage. They are in neutral rasa. So Anybody who is offering active service, they are in Dasaras. Yeah, but Ashramadipur, if you have any comments.
No, Prabhu, you are correct. Sometimes some devotees can be in Santa and Dasa both. Like for example, the cows, when they are enjoying, the Krishna is playing the flute. At that time they're Santa, but other time, like when they are, offering the milk, they are like, sort of Dasa, like that. It is possible. And sometimes some of the rasas can have multiple things. Like for example, the Madhurya ras can have also Vatsalya, because some of Krishna's gopis used to treat him like, because he is a mischievous boy, so used to treat him like a child and he needs to be disciplined, although they are in Madhurya ras. So some of these rasas have also the rasas from the lower, not I won't say lower, but the other rasas basically. They're different rasas. They're not really lower or higher. But Madhurya is the most dense, considered the most dense of rasas.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So we are 8:34. So
We can stop here.
yes, we can stop here. Vancha
Vancha kalpatarubhishya kripasindhubhyo vicha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Kautukarnava Prabhu ki jai.
Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakti ki jai. Thank you.
Thank you, dear devotees, for taking time from your busy lives and joining in this online Wednesday session. I will meet again in Wednesday session next week. Thank you again for joining. We will now close the session. Hari Bol.